Well, Thanksgiving is over, and now we're almost to the end of the year. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am going to go into networking right away with everyone out there. My first guest has been on with me a couple of times now before.
Right.
I have with me Gil Hacohen, and he is the owner of Lawyers4Less. Welcome back to the show. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Why did I have you come on now is a real good reason. We've always picked these things sometimes for real good reasons.
Strategic.
A lot of people out there might have gotten popped. Listen to me. Listen, maybe it's you. Maybe it's someone that you know. Your son, your daughter, whoever, anybody. It could happen to anyone today, especially living in a no-tolerance state, right?
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, what you do, and today you said you want to focus on a couple of different things.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. I appreciate you having me back. I'm Gil. I work, I'm the owner of Lawyers4Less. We're a boutique law firm where you get more for less, right? The goal here is to help as many people as possible with as many of their legal issues as possible without charging exorbitant fees. And the reason we're on right now is because obviously we just got out of a holiday weekend and people were driving even though the CDC told you to stay home. I'm sure not everybody listened, went out, they visited family, they visited friends. They may have had a little too much to drink. And on the way home, something bad might have happened. And a lot of times if you are not aware or prepared, then you're going to have some legal issues. And that's when I come in and tell you don't stress, get a lawyer for less.
Now we're live on Facebook, so hi to everybody. That's my hand out there. Hi to everybody. We're live on Facebook. So here's the thing too about what I love about my show. It's information for people, right? And I think that if you're listening, maybe it's you, maybe it's someone that you know that has had something happen to them. First of all, you don't necessarily need to have a lawyer that's expensive, right?
That's absolutely right.
And
because the law works the same, whether the lawyer is making $600 an hour or $200 an hour. The law is the law.
But I want to stress about something about you that I know is that you bring to the table the same quality, the same type of work that expensive lawyer does for a lot less.
Oftentimes a higher quality, Carol, because oftentimes what you get at a $600 an hour firm is that they give their work to the paralegals to do. And in my firm, it's attorneys that do all the work. So instead of having a paralegal fill out your forms and do the research and write the paper, which then the $600 an hour attorney looks over and makes any modifications, you have attorneys working on your case from beginning to end.
Now you do free consultations for everybody, and you work with everybody valley-wide.
Correct.
You're rated with the Better Business Bureau. His phone number, write it down. Let me explain to you. Put it in your phone, because between now and the end of the year or the beginning of the year is a really big time where things can happen like this. Not just with DUI, you do a lot of things that you work with. We're going to talk about that. But put the phone number in your phone. It's 602-800-5762. His website is lawyers4less.com. Right?
That's exactly right.
Did you look at me and I'm thinking, and what we also want you to understand too is that you do all sorts of things, a plethora, all sorts of law.
Correct, yeah. We do a lot of light criminal defense. I call it light criminal defense. We don't do murders or rapes. If you're a murderer or a rapist, you might want to go to a different attorney. But we do DUIs. We do aggravated assaults or drug convictions. We do a lot of family law. We do some immigration, and we do some civil litigation. If you got a contract and somebody stiffed you on the contract, we can help you out in that regard.
Now, again, that phone number is 602-800-5762. Lawyers, the number 4less.com. Now, today you also said you wanted to focus on a little bit of family law.
I did.
A lot of people are fighting right now, too.
Well,
drinking, fighting, they go together.
It's a good combination, that's right, which ends up leading to aggravated assault or domestic violence, which I can also help you with. But no, this is the holiday season right now, and a lot of fights do occur around this time, specifically around kids. Who gets the kids? When do we get the kids? When do we have to exchange the kids? And that leads to a lot of issues and a lot of tension. And if you don't have a good plan, or sometimes even if you do have a plan, one of the parties decides not to follow the plan, then it becomes a question, how do I get to see my kids over the holiday? What do I do?
Also another thing that probably comes into question is money. And a lot of people out there are not getting their money, the child support, especially now. What do people do, especially now in this situation?
Times are real tight right now as it is. So, and from what I understand, they're about to cut out the extra unemployment that people have gotten, and so if you're not getting child support, it becomes rough. And there are mechanisms in place that the courts allow to make sure that whoever owes you child support will pay you child support, or they could actually end up going to jail.
Now, the phone number to call is 602-800-5762. The website is lawyers4less.com. And he says, don't stress, get a lawyer for less. And you don't have to. You don't always have to spend big money to get the kind of coverage that they take you. Well, I said coverage. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Is it?
Well,
representation is a better word.
Is a better word.
Yeah,
right.
That he will give you. Valley-wide, he does free consultations, rated with the Better Business Bureau, whether it's personal injury,
right.
criminal, family, you do immigration a little bit, also civil litigation as well.
Correct. Yeah, those are all very varied aspects of the law. But I myself, or I work with other attorneys, we work together on your case. So oftentimes you'll have more than one attorney working on your case, which again is a benefit and value that you don't get at some of these other firms.
So let's talk a little bit about family again. I've got some questions that I want to ask. Okay. Somebody is home, they were home, and today everything is so much different than it was years and years and years ago. A cop would come over and just go, hey, cut it out, whatever's, now, let's say somebody did something where they pushed them, right? Someone's going to jail.
Yeah.
It's different today than it was years ago, right?
Yeah.
What happens in that situation? When should they call? Because now, let's say they spent that night in jail, right, or whatever. Now they need to figure out what they're going to do.
Right. So what that would lead to is domestic violence charges, okay? And there may be an aggravated component to that, depending on what exactly happened. And now the person who went to jail is facing criminal charges, which may end up impacting, time with the kids, or being able to go back to your own house, right? And depending on the situation, maybe the party that pushed was actually the victim, or maybe the party that was the pusher was the aggressor. Yeah, it's situation specific, right? But it often helps to have an attorney to make sure you know what your rights are. Maybe you need an order of protection to prevent that person from coming back to the house after they leave jail, right? Or maybe the person that went to jail needs an order of protection because they're actually the victim in this situation, and we're acting in self-defense in that situation.
In my opinion, whether it's a DUI or whatever it is, it all depends on you having an attorney who's going to help you, depending on how bad it is, that situation, get that lowered, because that's really, it's a lot all about the case.
Definitely for the DUI, what happens is that a lot of the times people go with a public defender, and what they need to understand is that public defenders deal with 90, 100 cases at a time. They don't have the time to get into the specific facts of each case, and really being able to lower your charge or being able to dismiss it is very dependent on the specific facts, right? Were you weaving within the lane, or did you actually weave into the next lane? Things like that can make the difference between getting your charge reduced or dismissed.
That number to call them is 602-800-5762. Put the number in your phone and just put it under lawyer. Lawyer for less. And the reason why is because you're not going to remember the name. And that people have a hard time remembering, but you will always remember lawyer. Just put it in the phone, and there you go. It's there if you need it between now and the end of the year especially. We were talking before we go to break. I wanted to say this before we go to a break, is that before we actually came on the show, we were talking about how a lot of people today are fighting and drinking and doing more at home. But they'll run out and go do something or whatever. Now more than ever, are you finding, even more so with this pandemic, that people are just, they're going crazy?
There's a lot more domestic violence that's happening. I'm finding that because people are drinking more. They're drinking more at home, and that leads to more fights at home. Ironically, DUIs have dropped because people aren't driving as much, and personal injury has dropped. But domestic violence, issues for divorce, those have gone up significantly because people are spending a lot more time together and finding out that maybe they don't like each other as much as they thought they did.
Especially when they drink. That something happens when people have a couple of drinks in them, and the next thing you know, whammo. Well, you don't want that to happen. There's so many other reasons that we're going to talk when we come back after the break. Again, that phone number to call him is 602-800-5762. He does free consultations. He works valley-wide, rated with the Better Business Bureau. It's lawyers Lawyer4Less, and that's in the number 4, less.com. Don't stress, get a lawyer for less. Hang tight, we'll be back in just a minute.
Thank you.
We're going to keep on talking a little bit here, and because
And
we
you know
are.
what, another thing is that if I was you, I'd bring up that people that get arrested, that impacts the future of it. You might not be able to get a house loan, you might not be able to buy that car.
Job,
The
yeah.
interest rate, the job,
Yeah,
this impacts, and they don't think about it until all of a sudden, oops.
yeah.
Am I doing what you like, or did you
Yeah,
want more
you're
in
doing
terms?
great.
Okay, kind of mixing them, blending them. Okay,
Absolutely. Love it.
cool. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Okay,
perfect.
go ahead. You guys can talk.
Yeah, there's a lot of, so I had he was a police sergeant, and he got popped here by Fish and Game for hunting without a license. Now, he lives right across the border in, what's right over the border, the California town with a B?
Bakersfield.
No, it's right over
Oh,
the
that's
border,
way
the
over.
Arizona border with a B. It's, gosh, I forget.
I think I know what
Anyway,
you're talking
it's right over the border, okay? And he's been hunting here his whole life, but they got him. And they have it. It's a misdemeanor, but it's a crime of dishonesty, right? So that would affect his promotions, the way they charged him, right? Because now he's being charged with a crime of dishonesty. So I had to get it reduced to something else, and it just took a whole bunch of stuff. But now we got it reduced to something where it's no longer a crime of dishonesty. So it's on his record, but it's not going to impact his ability to be promoted.
We're going to talk about that. Here's a sheriff, or whatever you said,
Yeah,
who knows the law.
yeah. He
It
was,
could happen to anyone.
yeah, he was California Highway Patrol or something. What's
I
the
can't
town?
remember the name of that. I know what you're talking about, but
It's right over the border. It's
Why?
Is it Blythe?
Blythe,
Yeah, it's
Blythe.
Blythe. Yeah, exactly.
Why
It's in Blythe.
how do I remember that? I used to go and stop there at McDonald's all the
Yeah,
time.
that's it. That's
Let's
the
go
stop.
get it.
That's right. Yeah. So,
I'll tell you a funny story about Blythe. Only my mom and dad would find a really good restaurant in Blythe,
Blythe?
because they were like, let's go this way and go somewhere else, and they found it.
it's off the beaten path.
And the thing is you're fighting these like Zoom and these that try to be attorneys. We the People's one of them.
Yeah.
They really don't know what they're doing.
Well, I think they disclaim it that they're not attorneys, right?
They
They're-
do, but they keep telling you they know this
Right.
same thing.
Right.
They
Yeah.
cost me over $250,000.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it's long drawn out.
story.
It was nasty.
Really?
So the
That's
thing
awful.
is, yeah,
Yeah, LegalZoom and all that. They tell you they're not attorneys.
they tell you that,
yeah.
but they act as
Like they can't. They are. Yeah.
yeah.
Would you do a contract with them and it would backfire? Yeah, that sucks. Sorry.
Yeah. Followed their directions exactly.
Here we go, guys. So welcome back, everyone. I love my show. I love my show because it's such great information for people out there. And it's something that even if it's not today, you write that number down, and let's say we're talking about what we are right now, having an attorney. First of all, you never know when you're going to need one, number one. But number two, having one that's for less, that you're going to get representation, just as if it was the top-notch big guns behind you. This is a number to have for sure. We're talking with Gil Hacohen, and he is the owner of Lawyers4Less. And at the break, we've been sitting here talking about, I love hearing the stories, and people like hearing stories too. You were just mentioning one that the person that got in trouble was a person who should know better. Let's go.
Yeah, he was an officer. He lived in Blythe, actually in California, and but he'd come to Arizona to go hunting since he was a kid with his dad, and he had just come last year, and he got popped by Fish and Game for hunting without a license. And the way they charged him with a crime. It was considered a crime of dishonesty. Now, this guy was a sergeant, and he was up to be promoted. And if you have a crime of dishonesty on your record, that's going to keep you from being promoted in the police department. So, through a lot of negotiation and various and research and finding out he actually owned some land out here, and so we used some loopholes, and we were able to get that charge reduced to a different charge, which did not involve dishonesty, which would not impact impact his future. And I think that's what's something that people need to remember is a lot of these times, if you get charged with a crime, it could have far-reaching impacts long after the crime and you've done the time or whatever it is. You might be up for a promotion years from now, and that'll keep you back. It might prevent you from getting a home loan or various other things that you need to consider at the time. What's that saying? A cure in time saves a stitch in.
I'll tell you one thing right now. The first thing that you will get asked when you're looking for a job is, have you ever been,
convicted of a felony? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, a felony, that's a felony. And sometimes what people don't realize is that when you do something, and I'm just telling you this for the holidays, let's say you're driving around and you've had a couple of drinks, you were just at a party, and you have some young child with you under the age of 18, guess what?
Well,
that's a felony.
That's automatically a felony. So some DUIs can be charged as misdemeanors depending on how intoxicated you are, but if there's a child in your car, then it automatically gets bumped up to a felony.
Here's the thing, we're going to talk a little bit more about family law too, because right now a lot of people are dealing with family issues and things are coming up big time, but also for anyone that might have gotten popped, please write the number down. Tell them about it, whatever you can. Have them have a consultation with Gil. That number is 602-800-5762. He does all sorts of kind of law. There's criminal, personal injury, family, immigration, civil litigation. You happen to mention something that you said there's less PI lately. I think that's nuts. I can't believe that's happening because to me, it's worse on the roads now because people are flying.
Is it? That's right. People are flying, but there's less people on the roads, less people driving, so it naturally translates into less PI.
But be careful out there, guys. You still don't. But if you need somebody, give them a call. Let's go back to family law. Okay, what you might want to bring up about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is a time of year where people are very focused on family, and rightfully so. Thanksgiving, everybody, even though it's a different year because of the pandemic this year, people want to get together with family, and a lot of people don't have that option. Whether it's a dad that can't see his kids, or whether it's a mom and dad's unreasonably withholding them, or various things that prevent you from spending that time with family. There are mechanisms with the court. I had a client who wasn't able, and this was last year, he hadn't seen his kids on a holiday for 6 years. He hadn't seen his kids on a holiday. And I asked him, I said, well, why not? He said, because, mom won't let me. I said, well, there's things you can do about that. And he said, well, what can I do? And I said, well, you can take it to court. Well, I can't afford a lawyer. Well, guess what? Now you can afford a lawyer. And that's the whole point. That was my mission when I started this firm, was to be able to provide, quality legal access at reasonable, affordable prices. Because a lot of times when people think lawyer, they think, $300, $400, $500 an hour. How am I ever going to afford this? And the truth is that you can get it for significantly less, and that's what I strive to do.
So here's what we're going to do. When you say that, talking to him and just having that consultation, that's all you need is to have a consultation, find out what he can do for you.
And that's another thing that sets me apart is I offer free consultations. A lot of times people think they need to go to a lawyer to talk to a lawyer first. Sometimes it's going to cost them $200-300 for the hour to spend with a lawyer. And again, that's something that I didn't like with the legal profession. I'll give you a free consultation. I'll tell you if I can help you, and we can take it from there.
The number to call is 602-800-5762. Put it in your phone under lawyer. The website is lawyers with an S for the number 4less.com. Okay, so that was the reason why you started this, was because you didn't like the way that your area of profession, how they worked, and how they were taking so much money from people.
Yeah, I remember when I was a kid, my parents were sued. My dad was a business owner, a small business owner, and he needed an attorney to defend him, and it nearly broke the bank. It was very, very stressful because attorneys were and still are very, very expensive. And so, I aim for win-win situations. If I can give somebody good legal advice, give them quality representation, but still do it at a price that they can afford and that's reasonable, then that's a win-win for me.
602-800-5762. We were talking a little bit about family law a minute ago, and I want to bring back something to the people. Because it's the holidays, people like to wait to have a, let's say, go for the divorce, right? A lot of people are thinking about it now,
right,
but they kind of hold off. Best for them to call and talk to you now. What is that? What do you feel about all of that?
Yeah, listen, there's various strategies with divorce, and a lot of that depends on the assets that you're going to divide and the kids and you know what the dynamic is between the couple, right? If there's domestic violence, then I urge you to separate and get a order of protection as soon as possible. But if there's tax implications or things like that, and it might be better to wait. So it's all very situational, and getting consultation to know what your rights are and to develop a plan, a formula for when and how to proceed is usually the best way to go.
Get your ducks in a row now. Be prepared and know. And if anybody out there is dealing with any kind of domestic violence, you don't have to deal with that.
Absolutely not. That's the worst. And there's definite ways to protect you where you don't need to leave the house. The other person's going to be ordered to leave the house. There's ways to protect you. So. That's very important. And as far as getting your ducks in a row, that just brought up something in my mind as well, because divorce often leads into estate planning, right? Now that you're single, what do you do with your assets? Do you plan for your kids now? Do you need a will now? Do you set up a trust, things like that? And that's also something that dovetails nicely that we help people out with.
Again, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You don't need to have big, expensive attorneys. He's made it that way because he wanted to make sure that people got the kind of representation that you deserve for less money. And you can do any area of law. And again, with him, right now, we've just said 3 different areas, which is DUI, family, and estate planning, that all just come together right there.
That's right.
They just happen to do that. Now, we want people to understand too. Another thing that we were talking about before we leave. A lot of people do try and do things on their own now that they see as so much is on, online.
Legal
You got to
Zoom.
be careful because we were just talking about a story there.
We were, yeah. So it's very important for people to remember, Legal Zoom, they're not attorneys, okay? We the people are not attorneys. And they tell you that in the fine print, and very small, they say, we're not attorneys, right? But they portray themselves as if they are. And people can get in trouble. They can, get contracts, and they can follow all the directions, and then it can end up blowing up in your face. And if that contract is ever disputed and challenged, and somebody takes you to court over it, it might not be in your best interest. So
Yeah, it's not in your best interest to try and do things on your own. In my opinion, it always takes that conversation, and it doesn't hurt. He does free consultations with people.
Right.
Whatever area it is that you're dealing with, you don't have to spend a lot of money, but it's good to have someone like Gil who gives you that great representation as if you've got the big guns behind you at less money. And you always say, don't stress, get a lawyer for less.
That's right.
And you made it on purpose like that for everybody. You work valley-wide. He's rated with the Better Business Bureau. He does free consultations. His website is lawyers, and that's with an S, the number 4less.com. And the phone number is 602-800-5762. Real quickly, what are your final words?
My final words are stay safe out there, and again, don't stress, get a lawyer for less.
If you're dealing with any kind of issues, he's affordable, and he's someone you should call. 602-800-5762.